Hello, Ben here with Service Six Sigma. Are joining our live stream early to watch our pre-reels that we have on our live stream, and then we will start our show at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you.
Is a dentist. So as a service business, one thing that we can do to increase our revenue and increase the value of our customers is increase the amount of times that we service them. So window cleaning is really good at this. Carpet cleaning is usually pretty good at this. Pressure washing, depending on where you're at, could be challenging. But think about, I wrote dentist there, right? So think about it when you go to the dentist or you go to get your hair cut. When you're leaving that service as you're paying or before you pay, before you walk out of there, what are they doing? They're booking your next appointment.
John Carmazon teaches valuable insights into selling service bundles to customers. To watch the whole episode, visit www.service6sigma.com.
Back in June of 01, someone left me unconscious on the side of the road in a hit-and-run motor wreck. I lost my career in IT. I lost my savings. I lost a photographic memory. I was messed up. Fast forward a little ways to July of 2002. I have an eviction notice from our apartment. I have turned my BMW into the bank. I'm waiting on Italy to make parts for my Ducati. I am 2 weeks out of a full shoulder surgery. I'm in an isolation brace, a neck brace, and a morphine pump surgically implanted in my shoulder. I call up one of my buddies and I say, "Hey, will you come over and shake my couch out for me?" He laughs. He comes over. He shakes my couch out. I grab all of the change off the floor and ask him to run me to a dollar store. I buy a bottle of awesome window cleaner, the cheap stuff, and a roll of paper towels. I also buy an empty squirt bottle so I can water down the LA Awesome window cleaner. The next day, I shove my sling just full of paper towels and I hook the bottle of window cleaner on my belt hoop, and I start walking down the road, going business to business, just simply stating, "Hello, my name's Brian. I'm poor, I'm hungry. I'd really like to eat tonight. May I clean your windows?"
Learn what happened next in Brian Hoyt's amazing and inspiring life story at service6sigma.com. We have many guests that we have on our show. Be part of a growing community of guest speakers and share your professional insight in the mobile service industry. Welcome to a free live stream built around 6 sectors. This live stream created for mobile service professionals. We would like to introduce you to your hosts, Ben Bergloff and Perry Tate. Welcome to Service Six Sigma, your live stream for mobile service professionals. We want to thank you for joining our show today. Please stand by as our show is about to start. Thank you.
Boom. Welcome.
Boom, you beat me to it. Benji. All right. Well, today is I've got my good friend Peter Thomas. He said he takes Friday mornings off to listen to our guest today, Mr. Paul Finster, who is the guru of vacuum. So I think without any further ado, we're in part 4 because Paul is not a spring chicken. He's 77 years young, still going for it.
And he's good looking too. He doesn't look his age.
Well, no, he does not. He looks as young as young. All right, let's bring him on. Mr. Paul Finster, part 4. Here we go.
Perry, good to see you. Hi, Ben.
Yes, sir.
Welcome from Brisbane, Australia.
Brilliant. Hey, where we got up to is we can't quite remember, but we know that it's a long way through the journey. I know you've ridden your push bike to work, to the coffee shop, because your wife sold everything to keep everything going, and then you had to rebuild yourself again. And I think we got through that next story where you rebuilt yourself again, and then that's where we're up to, I think.
Yep. Yeah. I think so. So,
So the last time I asked you what age were you? You were 50. The last answer you gave me was 52. So it's somewhere between 52 and 55 is where we're up to.
Yeah.
Which is just a short 20 years ago.
Hey, what's a few
That's
years?
Benji was still in nappies then.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think I sort of talked about the business partner that I had at the time, and
That's right.
we set up the gutter vacuum machines, and then of course that fateful Monday morning when we start to talk to our dealers, and he
the
pulled
government
the mat out
subsidy
from underneath me.
The government subsidy had been pulled.
Yeah. So, it's like, okay, I'm now exposed out in the open, got to restart my mentality and get moving forward. By this time I'd met you, my partner had went, no, we don't want to do window cleaning equipment, move on. And so, I'm sort of in this situation of pick myself up, slap myself around, start again, get in there, punching. It's rather interesting because last night I was thinking about these various segments of my life, leading up to where we are today, and I listened with interest to your guest yesterday, and one of the things that come home to me was his devout loyalty to his wife when things got really, really tough, and of course her me in. And one of the things that I look back on is that it seems as though in my life's journey, I have 7 to 10 year curve lines. So, if you do a startup, it's like year one. At year 7 to 10, where are you? And it's interesting that they almost form a good part of my relationships. And, this comes back to some people get on your bus, some people get off, and some people are good for the journey. What makes a separation happen in business? And sometimes you become a workaholic, you're dedicated to the product. Sometimes it's just a falling out of the relationship because of whatever. And sometimes it's about money, where you go on the down curve, which I call a J curve. And you're on this curve. It's like falling off a cliff. Where's my parachute? How do I get back up again? It takes a lot of mental strength to get back up again. It's okay for a female partner, whereas if she's working or if she's in the house or whatever her occupation may be, she's not at that knife point of your business model that can actually ride that J curve, because while she hears you and understands you, she's not in the field with you. So, in my case, they got off my bus because they thought I was going to hit the bottom and never get up. But the tenacity of people, if we look at scientists and other huge professionals and inventors like you and I, the whole thing about your product is look after the product and the product will look after you. And so you've got to ride that downturn, because that downturn could be serious opposition that's just decide to hammer the daylights out of you. And that has happened to me. That's the bottom of the J curve. And it's when I get my head around what's this big chessboard that I'm up against and how do I fight it? And one of the ways that you can fight it is that if you are very exposed in the market with a product, so you've got your social media, you've got your product up there and it's going full steam, everybody wants to jump on the back of that and ride on the back of your advertising dollar, and all of a sudden you realize you're fighting that off. So historically, on session one of what we've been talking about, that happened to me when all of a sudden I've got a $500,000, legal fight to keep myself in the market. And
Yes.
so as I moved forward and I got more experience and exposure, one of the things that I started to do was create the product, put the IP around it, sell the product and let somebody else market it and go through the hell. And you've got, a handshake that you can utilize to create more product.
Yes.
Interesting chain of thought. And I know that doesn't go for everybody, but for me, over my life,
definitely for the inventors. If they're still, if bottom line is, you can either do it with your own resources or you can't. And if you can't do it with your own resources, and you want to do it, you've got to do it with other people's resources, and that often means selling it to them.
Yeah.
If they're going to put their money in, they want to own it. And that's
absolutely.
business.
That's business. That's business.
Yeah.
But the interesting part is sometimes you sit back green with envy, going, "Geez, they've done a better job than what I could do." So
Yes.
these are things that you've got to live with and move on. So in my case, punch myself around, pick myself up, and all of a sudden my brother rings me from Melbourne and says, my father, by the way, had passed away by this time. Mum's in a respite home. So is my mother-in-law. I'm looking after two old ladies that are now in their 80s, and the family home is vacant. We can't put a tenant in there because within the will, and he was the executor, if mum passes away, we've got to, somehow get people out of the house, which is sometimes difficult,
Right.
in order to sell it and then split the proceeds and follow through with the will. So, hey, you're only working behind a computer. Can you pack yourself up and move down to Melbourne into the family home, occupy it until such time as mum, moves on in her journey?
Yes.
And it was like, I can do that. So pack it up and relocate down to Melbourne. And it's like, I'm down here now. I've got to, get myself into a different social climate and start, getting things up. So remembering that historically, I had built these insulation machines and also some gutter vacuum machines. I get an invitation from an email from Canada by reference, and the Canadians go, "We've heard about you and what you do in Australia. Can we strike up some sort of a communication?" And this company was huge, $10, $15 million company, well established. Next minute, I get an invitation to fly into Toronto, their cost. And this is a product that I looked at and had studied and understood prior to them even coming to me. So maybe they had picked me up through their internet or whatever, I don't know. But whatever it was, they reached out. So it happened to be their 10-year anniversary. They'd invited all of their distributors across North America to come in. And interesting enough, some of those distributors knew me by my product, but not me as a person. So
right.
That was an interesting challenge. So I do this training week with them, and they unload onto me all of the data and say, "Paul, we want to set up in Australia. How would you go about it?" And of course, what I said, well, you need to establish a trademark, you need to establish an office, and and I'm happy to get this ramped up. And he said, "Well, let's turn around and make you the Aussie director. Go and set up the company. We'll fund the whole thing and get moving." So I did. And all of a sudden, I'm the Australian MD of this, Canadian company. And then I got my first real inquiry, and and that was back up in Brisbane, and I stitched that up in 9 hours, $165,000. And all of a sudden, the factory is going, "Whoa, you're unbelievable." The machine was so big, it took 3 forklifts to get it off the truck or get it on the truck in Canada to ship it off to put it in a sea container. So because it was rectangular, one at the short end and one on either side to
Right.
lift it off the ground, and then they back the
Wow.
lorry underneath it, and away it went. Massive, massive machine. So it's underway. And then this guy in Melbourne inquired to the factory, hey, I'm interested in your product. He turned out to be the guy that bought the Guttervac machines off a rep of mine in
Right.
Sydney who was manufacturing them. And so this is a guy that stepped out of his own business into his father's leasing business. I think I've spoken
Yep.
about that before.
Yep.
And
Yes.
the next minute, this guy has got this equipment, and now he's wanting to enlarge his business. And so, because I'm in Melbourne, it was pretty easy. Go and knock on the door. I understood his business model really quick, and I had to zip
Yes.
up my mouth and go, "Oh, I'm not going to talk about that because I don't want him to know that I know what he knows plus
Yeah.
some." Right?
Plus some. Yeah. Yes.
Here's my Canadian product. What's going on? And of course, he's going, yep. I want it exclusive for Australia. Australia is very, very difficult because with our 26 million population and a country that's only 100 square miles smaller than the continent of the United States, we've got a big country but a very small population to get around.
Yeah.
So a lot of people
Yeah.
put their
Hang
hand
on.
up for an exclusive.
Yeah. They want exclusive for Australia, but I always say, like, Australia is about the size of China and has a population the size of less than Shanghai.
Also,
like, just to put it in. Yeah. Yeah.
just unbelievable.
Yeah, somebody
So
wants exclusive, and they can't service it because unless they've got regional offices in every city already, they're never gonna
and the
do it.
Yeah,
And the sales
exactly.
team,
Exactly. So anyway, I had this meeting and I get to understand the guy a little bit, and I put the facts and figures back to Toronto. And as it turned out, in this period of time, because we had built a commissioning fee into this very large sale in Brisbane, the president turned around and said, guess what? I'm coming over to Australia for the first time on the back of the commissioning fee, and we'll meet with this guy in Melbourne. I'll fly into Melbourne first, and then we'll do the business, and then we'll fly up to Brisbane and have a look at what's going on. So the Melbourne guy had a national sales manager who I later found out was a declared bankrupt, and was hanging on the shirt tails of this guy that owned the business, getting brown envelopes underneath the table to avoid the
tax
bankruptcy law.
responsibility. Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, these two guys are like a pair of wolves in the room, but
right,
business is business. You sort of run with that.
Yeah.
So my boss partner comes in from Canada, and we sit down with these guys, and the conversation goes backwards and forwards, and of course it comes back down to, I want an exclusive. And the Canadian president says, well, the only way that I would grant you an exclusive is if we have a value set and a time period set. Okay, what's the value? What's the time period? Well, the time period is 18 months to get it established, and the value is 950,000 Australian dollars. So there's your target. Here's the whole
subject to agreement
scenario.
Yep.
And we'll document this and put it together. Of course, they're over the moon. We've got this equipment that's running between $35,000 and 150 grand. It won't take us much to turn over, just short of $1 million in an 18 months period. So he's jumping for joy. And the next minute, we're all going out for dinner the following night to a very expensive restaurant at the client's cost.
Yeah.
And he says, well, let's start. We've got a potential sale in Millmerran in Queensland, which is a coal-fired power station, brown coal. And can we come up and meet you in Brisbane, and then we'll take you out to Millmerran and meet with the guys out there? Yep, sure. So we independently fly up to Brisbane. We commission this product and get that under the belt, and then we all pile in the car, drive up to Millmerran on the Darling Downs, and we meet with the with the team at the coalface, and we walk all around, and we take all the notes that we take. So it's an on-site meeting, and then we move on back into Toowoomba. That night we have the national sales manager, and he's whining and dining and making himself quite attractive to the president of the company. And then back down the Gold Coast, and we move on, and the other guy's gone back to Melbourne to his boss. 18 months goes by, and by this time I'm working with the national sales manager. We're driving around doing demos and doing quotes to the tune of $4 million.
Wow.
And so that's $4 million we've got in the quote books, not
Yep.
quite locked in. Now,
Yeah.
the Australian distributor along the way either got greedy or was totally undercapitalized, which we didn't know one way or the other. But what he did is he set the ground rules, 65% down, and 8 weeks build time, 12-week shipping time, because we were going from Toronto to the coastline to go on board a ship to go to Singapore to come down into Australia.
Yeah.
12-week shipping time, right? So what happened, that turns out to be around about 25 weeks, thereabouts. And so what happened was these $4 million worth of quotes with tier 1, tier 2 companies and below, some of them, not many, turned around and said, yeah, I'm up for that because there's nowhere else I can buy this gear. The others turned around and went to the border and went, oh, is there a risk if we put this money down?
6 months.
Can this guy fold? And all of a sudden we're left handing the bag. The other thing was that the Canadians could ship us diesel engines, which were...
Whoop, we lost them. Did we lose them?
Their main market, of course, in their home market was electrics. So the end result was they didn't have a Australian certified electric motor. So what we had to do was negotiate with an Australian manufacturer of electric motors, certified, buy the motor, send it to Toronto, have it fitted, and then send the whole machine into Australia. That just added to all the manufacturing time. End result was that the national sales manager turned around and pulled the strings with the Canadians and went, you know, you don't need Paul and you don't need this other guy. I can do the job for you. I'm younger, etc., etc. And by this time, I'd gone into Canada and given them a whole lot of data to build their first batch of gutter vacuum machines, of which there were 25 or so. And I've sent you the photographs of those independently. And they shipped them in. I went over to Toronto to see the machines moving and make sure that the quality was right before they shipped, and got back to Australia. They used my company to bring the machines in because they didn't have a registered company. And then I got the phone call, guess what? We've pulled the mat out from underneath you on this basis. And so what they did is they crashed the Australian distributor because he didn't reach target. They supported the national sales manager, financed him into a warehouse, and started to move forward. So they financed the guy. 12 months later, he'd made enough money where he told the Canadians to go and get stuffed and started to run with an Italian manufacturer of vacuums. So no loyalty from that bloke. You know, he got out of bankruptcy and steamed along. And today, he supplies one gutter vacuum machine into the market and a whole range of Italian manufactured vacuums that I think the Italians have probably got money inside him, and sooner or later they'll pull the string on him and he'll go under, and and they'll have their office in Australia established on his back. So interesting. We'll see what that comes around with. So here I am, and all of a sudden I'm back
without a job again.
Startup. Like, oh, come on. So,
and how old are you now?
I'm now about 62.
Yeah, see, my age 62. Now.
Yep.
Yeah.
So my kids are saying, "Dad, go on the pension, retire. Things
Right.
will be good
Yeah.
for you." And I'm going, "No, no, 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 no. I don't do that." So in the UK, when I was over there with my glass engraving machine and no TV of a night time and all that, I
Uh-huh.
started redesigning. I started redesigning Dragon Pump, and these are the products that I've sent you, in multicolors with nice
Yes,
photographs,
yes,
etc., etc.
yes.
So it's like, okay, get back down to things that you totally understand. This is something that it takes a fair bit for people to understand the technology. And of course, by this time, several American companies had copied my original Dragon pumps. They'd made them slightly different and added, features and benefits that they related to in their home market, but they still hadn't got it right, because in my design criteria, I had 8 different models. They had one. In
Right.
my design that I started to rethink through, I went for 4 models in the marketplace and I launched them. So 2 models were an economy, and the other 2 models were, we'll call them a deluxe for ease of
Right.
everybody understanding what's going
Yeah.
on. So through circumstance, I had met a young guy back in Queensland who was a design engineer. He'd done his engineering course in South Australia. A very likable young man, backside out of his jeans, not much money, a lot of talent. And I said to myself, can I pass my knowledge on? Is there an apprentice out there that I can trust to
Uh-huh.
pass my knowledge on? Because there are so many guys that create product, that I've seen create product, and they fall over, they die, they get a nice epitaph
Yep.
on their tombstone, but that's it, and their product's lost. Their family are not interested, and they sell it off,
Yep.
or
Yep.
it just goes down the tip,
Or it just goes down the
in a
yep.
clear out. I mean, you're lucky you've got Harrison to pick up from where you
Yes.
are, and hopefully
Yes.
he's the best apprentice you could ever find. But
Yes.
nevertheless, in my case, my family were not interested in my product. My
Yes.
grandson was too young to take it up, and not of the nature that I am. So I
Yep.
didn't see anyone, moving forward. So this young guy all of a sudden loses his job, and he reaches out to me and says, "Hey, Paul, would you be interested in, building a machine with me?" Which was a machine for cleaning out everyday 200-litre rubbish bins that we have all over our country in every house. And America's got in their country, and I think a whole lot of other countries have got the same thing. And this was
Right.
his background, that he was working for a company on the Sunshine Coast that were building these machines in an industrial area. And I said, "So, what's your motivation?" And he said, "Well, I want someone that's experienced in manufacturing and selling to help me build this, wheelie bin cleaning machine." And I went, "No, expensive machine, limited sales initially. You've got to get it ramped up, etc., etc." I said, "Look, I'll pick up your airline ticket, come into Melbourne, we'll sit down and we'll talk about it." It was either I fly to him or he flew to
Yeah.
me. So
Yeah.
I decided
Yeah.
to bring him down, and down he came, and we had 3 or 4 days together, uh, eating, drinking coffee, getting our minds synced together. And I said, "Look, you've got to raise the capital to do this. So I've got these drawings, etc., etc., and I need to get these things built." And he said, "I've got a friend who's like a business friend through one of my relatives here in Melbourne that has a big engineering shop. How about we go and meet him?" We're 3 days into a 4-day meeting. I went, "Yep, okay," jump in the car. We go across and meet this guy, and I show him my drawings under a letter of non-disclosure, which I'd done with the young bloke as well.
Yep.
And
Yep.
the engineering shop went, "Wow, we're excited. We know Michael's family. we're happy to do this for you. Oh, and by the way, we've got a spare office here. We've got a whole manufacturing facility. We can make space for you. And we've got a boardroom. You're welcome to use it free of charge. Wow. So all of a sudden, I'm in this situation of I can walk into a factory environment, look at a CNC machine
Yeah.
or even a capstan
Beautiful.
lathe and see my product being built.
Yeah.
Wow. The door is
Yeah.
opened. So we go,
Yes.
man. So, of course, I turn around yet. Okay, I'll come back to you next week, but Michael and I have got to settle a few things down. Paul, that's no problems. We like the look of you. We like how you talk. We're excited by your product. We can see a use for it in our factory. We need something like that. So you're more than welcome to come back and sit down. So off we go. Michael and I sit down now and we belt things around. And I said, Michael, I've got a couple of companies. I don't know whether I want to invest in a brand new company, but let's form something. So we agree that it's going to be there, and the product that we come up with a name, which is called One Clean. And you've seen that logo in some stuff that I've sent you.
Yeah.
So Michael's still saying, well, Paul, I've got no money. I don't know where to live. Well, I have a two-bedroom apartment. The second bedroom was just being used as an office. I can shuffle that around. You know, we've got one bathroom, but we can figure that out. I can get you in for a while until you earn enough to step out, right? And you've got to step out. There's no two ways about it. So what does he do? He packs up his old Toyota Celica or whatever it was and drives it from the Sunshine Coast down to Melbourne, down to my place, and I put him up, and the engineering shop's going, yep, fine, move in. The office is lockable. Here's the key, and you can put your stuff in there. So I start moving samples and things that I want to, focus on. And Michael and I sit in this one-room office, 2 desks which were provided, and away we go. We're in there boxing away. He's designing, doing all the drawings and the planning in harmony with the engineering guys. So, we've got 3-dimensional drawings. We can turn it all around. Bloody exciting. I'm just like, whoa, here we go. And we get the first range built, and he's doing renders. So he's designing the website. The website looks smick. I'm just so excited. I've got myself what I believe to be a good apprentice. Going back to the business name, of course, he's got no money. So what do? I insert capital into a registered company called One Clean, of which Michael is the sole director. I've got an agreement to outside of that gives me a comfort zone, that gives me what I believe to be the protection inside One Clean. So we're up, we're running, we're doing stuff, and out of the blue, I get a phone call from a chief engineer of a shipping line. And in amongst the photographs that I've sent to you a few weeks ago, there's a photograph of me in my safety gear with my hard hat on, and another guy alongside me shaking hands, right? This chief engineer says, Paul, I'm in charge of a fleet of coastal vessels moving around Australia. We have a problem with one of these vessels which carries all of the raw cement and supplies all of the silos in every capital city in Australia for the cement industry, bar none. And we have 7 ships holds, and we transfer the cement from the hold by a bucket elevator onto a conveyor belt into the silos on land. We've had a terrible accident. One of the holds was near on empty. We had a crew of 6 guys down the bottom brooming and sweeping the cement into a position where they can shovel it onto the bucket elevator. And some of these guys don't talk English. And one of our deck crew walked up to the safety rail and looked down into the hold to make sure that the workers were doing what they were supposed to do. And of course, there was a lot of dust, which was like a fog between him and them. And he forgot to snap on his safety line. and the next minute he got vertigo and fell over the protective barrier, which was only wire cable. Went to the bottom and smashed himself up very, very badly. He was 6 to 8 months in hospital.
Oh,
And
goodness me.
he said, we have to take away the sweeping and the shoveling, and we need a vacuum system. We're told that you're the guy that can design it. Can you meet us in Melbourne when the ship berths on this day and this time? Of course, my answer was absolutely.
Absolutely.
And yep, so I went on board, and I was on board for 4 hours. They walked me all over the ship. I asked to see certain areas of the ship, including the compressor room, which all ships have a compressor room, very
Right.
separate to the engine room. The compressor was up the bow, the engine room was down the bottom. And
Right.
I looked at the application, and I went, give me a few hours, and I'll come back to you with a basic design. So I walked away and went back into the office and sat down with Michael. I said, Michael, here's what I want to do. Pencil drawing, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And I need you to bring this up in a 3D model, which he did. So I had the foundation stone for what I needed to do, but I needed a particular ingredient which I didn't have access to. And that was the ability to create a certain vacuum. But I knew of a company in Newcastle that could give me that technology. So what did I do? I rang the national sales manager of this company and went, hey, I'm Paul Finster. I'm the actual founder of Blowvac. I've got an experience in Venturis. You're in the same industry. I need access to your product. He went, go away, you're opposition. And I
No
went,
way.
no way I will accept that. I'm happy to do an NDA, but we need to get together. This is a massive project, and there are all sorts of bonuses inside it, and I want to fly up to Newcastle and talk to you. So that phone call took an hour and a half to convince him that I wasn't the enemy.
Yeah.
And 2 days later, Michael and I flew into Newcastle, and with an overnight stop, and we sat down with this guy. We signed off an NDA, and he opened up to us, and then he realized we were the good guys, and he wanted to be part of the project. And of course, we're able to use his technology, which I understood 100%, to build it, but we used him to also build the product. So we took it
Yes.
outside the engineering shop. This guy was more of a fabrication business than a machine tool business, right? So
Right.
anyway, we've now got to that point, and he said, well, I need Michael back up here for probably 4 days to work with my team and perfect the whole build, and then we'll start the fabrication building process. So now we're sharing the cost of manufacturing with this guy. And so we went back to Melbourne, and then Michael come up, and he stayed there for 4 days, and all of a sudden it was, hey, Paul, they've built the thing, get up here real quick and just test it, which I did. And, 3-inch hose, and this thing is picking up cement like you wouldn't believe. We had to sit the machine on the deck and go down vertically 25 meters to the floor of the deck
Wow.
and pull the cement up to deck level, and then transfer it to another hold, which was up near the bow. So 6 holds had to be emptied, and all of that raw material transferred to hold number 1, which was in the bow. Then the bucket elevator would do most of it. Then they would move the machine to hold 1 and discharge it onto the conveyor belt, which would leave the ship empty. We won. We were able to bring in executives from the shipping company who had to sign off on the agreement. We gave them a look at this beautiful computer-generated 3D model. We were able to twist it and turn it in every which angle. The chief engineer was there. All this happened in Newcastle. And they turned around and went, wow, here's the deposit money, build it, which we did, and we supplied it. We ended up supplying it in Brisbane. The team flew into Brisbane, and we commissioned it there. And the photograph that you saw with me shaking hands was a done deal. So that was from the head to paper, to the computer, to the client there. I got a testimonial off the chief engineer some months later. The company is now saving, on average per year, $459,000 for what was a $75,000 investment.
Goodness me.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
and that's what I do. That's what I do.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, some time passes where we're now starting to make some gutter vacuum machines in Melbourne. We're selling very limited quantities because these other two guys now have been through a court case over the Canadian agency. They've gone to battle because the national sales manager pulled it away from the distributor. The distributor maintained he had the dirty done on him, and so he's suing them for breach of contract. And the Canadians are financing the other guy in the court case. They spent $120,000 each. They had a fist fight in the magistrate's court with security guards pulling them apart. Eventually, they just went away and did commercial stuff to each other, and they're still doing commercial stuff to each other. So I'm in Melbourne. I'm in the middle of these two guys in suburbia, and we're moving along. We're making all sorts of stuff. And the next thing that happens is the guys running the engineering shop said, "Hey, we've just got a government subsidy to relocate to another suburb in a brand new factory. And you're welcome to come with us. However, you're now going to have to pay rent, and you can still use the boardroom, and we'll give you an office and all of that, but we've got limited space within this facility. So we want to know how much space you actually want, etc., etc., etc." And this was in August, September 2017. And the deadline was the start of 2018. So I'm moving in and out of Brisbane to, maintain my family. My daughter is well and truly pregnant at this stage, due to have a baby 2 weeks before Christmas. And I'm up there for the birth. And lo and behold, my former wife and her mother takes extremely ill, unannounced, and passes away before the new baby is born. And my daughter's going in absolute panic stations. "Dad, what in the hell am I going to do? I've lost the support of my mum. I need you back up here because you're my only parent."
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, "Oh my God, Father!" But fate is an interesting animal because here's these guys saying we've got to relocate, etc., etc.
Yeah.
There's a cost,
Timing.
There's a cost, and now young Michael is saying, "You know what? I found a girlfriend in Brisbane, on the Sunshine Coast. I'd like to move back to Queensland." So I'm saying, well, maybe we can live and work a lot better in Queensland than what we can in Melbourne. And the changeover was going to be expensive in Melbourne. So, okay, what do? A couple of shipping containers later, we pack it all up and we send it up to Brisbane. And this time we've flown around and we've found a warehouse at North Lakes, and we're in a happy place. The baby's born. Life moves on. This another curve.
Yeah, that's the end of that chapter.
We move into the new warehouse. We get over the Christmas break, and we're now charging into 2018. And Michael decides that we're going to put ourselves up on Facebook and social media, and we're just going to ram product into the marketplace. So I'm open-minded about new ways of selling. I'm still running around opening up my distributors going, "Hey, look at my product, field touch, demonstrated, whatever." Meanwhile, Michael's done beautiful video. We've got some guys that are putting the video up on their phones and saying to their clients, "Hey, look at this super terrific dragon pump. It's great. And you can buy it off me for whatever price." And we're shoving stuff out the bloody door every day. I mean, Michael and I are working our asses off in the warehouse, packing, assembling, You know, we've got all of our benches set up. We've got our office and our air conditioning and our desks
Yeah.
and our computers,
Yeah.
and the world is looking bloody unbelievable. So now it's time to start exporting. What does Paul do? He exports really well. So I'm
Yes.
on the net and I'm just pounding away. First destination, New Zealand. Hey, we're going to
Yes.
go after the Kiwis. They've never seen anything like what we've got. So what happens? We find a guy. And the interesting part here is to find someone that becomes a business model that can go 360 degrees around the distribution circle. So a little bit like a bullseye, and you spread out from that bullseye, in all different industries. And you've got to make sure that those industries don't clash with each other. So you could go lubrication, you could go engineering supplies, you could go pneumatics, you could go in many different ways. So we find a company, very, very, very small, phone conversations, a little bit of video stuff. We sent him some information. He said, yep, you know what? I want in. Turns out his New Zealand national sales manager is a female, switched on young woman. I am just, when I got to meet her, I was blown away. And I've worked with a few women in sales in South Africa and also in Canada. So I'm not uncomfortable working with a woman in this type of role.
Yeah.
So what happens is there's a New Zealand trade day on, and he said, look, you know, this is the best time to release this sort of product. We'll get a small stand and we'll set it all up. So what do we need? And I told him what we needed. And we got what was called a 6x4 stand. So 4 meters deep, 6 meters wide. And that's all done. The stock goes over. We create all the marketing paraphernalia that's going to go on the stand, and Paul packs it all up and sends it, and pack my bag, and I'm on the plane and I'm heading for New Zealand for a 3-day trade show in Auckland. This is every second year. This one's coming up right now on this year. So I arrive, I meet the team, I'm impressed, they're impressed. We go over to the exhibition stand. The organisers come over and say, guess what? The stand that was going to be alongside you, they've reneged. The space is there. We can now give you a 12-metre front by 4-metre deep stand. How do you feel about that? Can you fill it? Well, bloody oath I can. Bloody oath I can. So what do we do? We are
That's
running
about
around
40 for the Americans. That's about 40 feet, right? 40-foot frontage.
It's a big stand. I've taken videos and photographs of that stand.
I'll bet.
So what we did is we set up 200-litre black painted drums. We run around, got them all organised. We put lovely labels all over them, put up all of our banners. I had another guy come in from Australia. He was going to work in New Zealand. He said, and he was a reseller of mine. He said, Paul, I'll give you some free time on the stand because I like you, you know, and you need some support. So all of a sudden there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of us working the stand. Every drum was set up as a demonstration drum. So any one of us could walk up to any drum and turn on a dragon pump and vacuum up water into the drum, which was supposed to be oil, and, you know, and then turn a knob and pump it back out again. So we've got it looking slick. We're very happy with it. We've got a little area we can sit down with potential distributors or clients and do the presentation on computer or whatever. We've got a bench where we can take their names and addresses. The doors open. The people come in. We're in a good location. And there are some really sexy CNC machines and water jet cutting machines and all sorts of machinery in this show. And people are now queued up on our stand to talk to one of 4 of us about what we're showing. We had people come up later on to say, you know, there's $500,000 machines in here and this is the best product we've ever seen. And I'm up there doing my Punch and Judy speech with a demonstration. And then when I run out of breath, everybody else takes over. And then the customers or the viewers come out to all of the other people to get a one-on-one. And some of them had 6 and 8 people standing around talking about what was going on with this drum.
Yeah.
It was we sold in 3 days on an average of $945,000 per unit. We sold 70 machine or 70 Dragon pumps, right, off the stand,
Wow.
cash, yeah, credit card, invoice, whatever. But we
Yeah.
sold them.
Yeah.
So I'm now highly motivated. This is what I've been doing when I started my export European,
Yeah.
North American, Canadian, whatever UK thing. So I'm back in the saddle, like I can do
It's
this
like the
stuff
Midas touch
blindfolded.
feeling, isn't it? You just
Yeah,
think
it's just
that's me.
wow. How did I ever lose track of what is really
Yeah.
my core, So
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
happens? I get back into Brisbane, and Michael's jumping for joy. He's building bloody stuff and packing it all up while I've been, doing the Punch and Judy show. And I'm back on the computer again, and lo and behold, up comes an inquiry out of America. So when I was working the American market, and I mentioned that I went into New York, there was a guy that I met in New York. Big man. He drove a Cadillac, and when he was in the driver's seat in that Cadillac, and I was in the passenger seat, the car was actually tilted in his favor
Goodness me.
because of his
Goodness
weight,
me.
right? But one of the things we did, because he was a Manhattan, New York rep, is he took me into the New York Fire Department and introduced that awful blue block that I showed you in the previous exposure as a product that might be used for, cleaning up oil or whatever in a hazmat thing. New York Fire Department, unbeknownst to me, took 2 of them. And then in their equipment selection, which they put up on their website for every fire station in America, and there are 2 levels of fire station. There's the regular hook and ladder fire station, but there's also the hazmat fire station. So if a truck and trailer go over and they've got a diesel fuel tank full of diesel, the hazmat guys come in to extract the diesel out or control a fluid spill on the ground so they don't have a fire. So my product had gone into this equipment list unbeknownst to me, and this guy had found that list and decided that he wanted to gain Dragon Pump. It was number 3 on the list from the top level. And so he's working the website, and of course he finds One Clean as being the manufacturers of Dragon Pump, and he's put his hand up for the market in the United States exclusively. Of course,
Smart.
chipping opportunity knocks but once on the door. What do you do with this? So all of a sudden, because it's America, you've got to pick up the phone, you do the emails, you do the other stuff, and it's like, come on over. We're in Ohio. We need to sit down and talk this through. So what do? You fly to San Francisco and then you grab another plane and you meet this guy, and you've allowed, a few days because that's all you can afford. You can justify being there. You don't know whether he wants 1 or 2 or whether he wants 600. You've got no idea.
Exactly.
So we sit down with this guy. The business is small, but it's effective, and it's very, very local. They've got a couple of products that they move across the United States. He's a little bit strange to me. He's not a typical distribution channel that I would go after. So with reservation, I open the supply line, non-exclusive. Let's see where we go. And he's going, yep, okay, I'll give you the order. So we've got the order, and he will transfer the money against an invoice within a week's time. So I come back to Brisbane, and I'm waving the piece of paper. And in the meantime, unbeknownst to me, Michael had switched the manufacturing role from the guys that were building it for us in Melbourne to a local engineering shop. And I go, Michael, when you've got the quality figured out, and you've got the supply
what a
line
lesson.
figured out, Do
What a
not,
lesson.
under any circumstances,
No,
change the supply line.
no, no.
You
How
can
old is
talk to
he
them.
at this point?
He is probably 27, about.
Yeah,
Still a
no idea.
youngster, still
No
green.
idea.
Yeah.
No idea. This is
So,
such a simple principle in business. You know, is it doesn't matter how good you think your idea is about change. If what you're doing now is working, really be sure that what you're doing when you're thinking of changing is imagining that it's going to be better, and you could have a ripple effect that is way worse. So you are always better to stay with what works. Almost always, let's say.
sure, if you're going to change your manufacturing supply line, don't introduce that product into your market until you've
No.
tested, and retested. So,
Tested.
yeah. So here's the situation. Remember, I said to you, session one, I designed this little float valve after the idea of a
Yeah,
snorkel, and I
yeah,
created,
yeah.
this thing, and you couldn't get a ball to float within that diameter of that thing. And I mentioned to you, oh, I got a coffee cup, turned it upside down while I was washing the
Yes.
dishes,
And it had the
and felt the
flotation.
resistance of the air bubble.
Yeah,
Okay. Where's that damn camera? Can you see this
there it
thing?
is. Yes, sir.
That's the upside down coffee cup. So the little O-ring at the top acts as the seal. There's a bevel on here that fits into a matching socket, if you like. And of course, that way it's hollow. Yeah.
Oh, and that side is
So
hollow, yeah.
up the top, inside, which would be the base of a coffee cup, the thickness of that base is absolutely critical to the whole weight of that. So you put this on
Yes.
electronic scales, and if it doesn't come in at a given weight on those electronic scales, you turn around and go, no, it's not going to go onto the system.
It won't
Right?
work. Yeah.
It won't work. It will never, ever, ever, ever work. And it's interesting that in the last week I was doing some surfing on the net, and I noticed in this sort of website where people talk to each other about various things, there are eight to 10 guys having a conversation as to why my American opposition product was failing them in their workshop, and they couldn't understand why it wouldn't work. And two of them had sent it back to the factory. The factory supposedly had fixed it and sent it back to them, and it still didn't work. And I'm sitting there roaring with laughter, going, the most simple thing is sometimes the
Yeah.
thing that trips you up. It's like getting water through a particular diameter fitting to be able to spray it onto the glass at the right
Yes,
volume,
yes,
at the
yes,
right
yes.
pressure. All of those
But this is the
things
thing
come into
about
play.
copy. You know, the designer used science, and the copy person doesn't understand the science. They only understand what it looks like, so they want to copy what it looks like. Yeah.
Yep.
They don't
I love
design.
the
They don't
image, and
create. They don't
I love
innovate.
the image. Yep.
Yeah.
It's right there. So what happened was Michael shifted the first serious order to New Zealand, and right behind it shifted the first order into the United States, only to have both parties go, what the hell is going on?
Wow.
And I walked back into this like,
No way.
and I'm going, Michael, what the hell's going on? So Michael was in trouble, because now he couldn't lean back on the Melbourne factory to fix his problem.
Right.
And by the
Right.
way, the Melbourne
And that's his
factory,
family, right?
yeah, well, indirectly, his
Yeah.
cousin was doing all the design engineering for the company, and that cousin was cousin to his father,
Right.
and of course he's
Yeah.
an elderly guy, and he's saying, well, I want to retire. Young Michael's there; he can do all that work for you. And they were looking at him to do the work and trusting with him, but unbeknownst to both of us, they were doing an overrun of production on Dragon Pump and had bins full of raw material produced, sitting
Right.
there, that I had no
Yeah,
idea
smart
about.
factory, smart factory,
Smart factory.
smart
Yeah.
factory.
Oh,
Just using their downtime to make what they know is going to be sold in the future, assuming
absolutely.
loyalty. Yep,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yep.
To the tune of $45,000 in inventory.
Ouch.
So, and Michael, by the way, the reason he turned around and changed supply lines is he couldn't meet their current invoice.
Oh,
Unbeknownst to me,
see.
Michael is not controlling his finances the right way.
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
And because
uh-huh.
I've been away from the nest,
What's he
I
driving?
can't oversee it. Oh, basic car, basic
Okay,
lifestyle.
okay. So he hasn't done that. Yeah. Okay.
What happened was Facebook. You see, Michael wasn't experienced with Facebook. So what he did is he got an outside contractor.
Uh-huh.
And the outside contractor come in and did a whole lot of dug in Michael's ear.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in Michael's view, he was getting a $4 to $5 return for every dollar invested in Facebook. Behind the scenes, while my back was turned, he had plowed $60,000 of our capital into Facebook.
Ouch. Ouch.
$60,000. And I've
Ouch.
got all of the bank statements, so I know exactly what he did.
Yeah.
So now we're approaching 2018, 2019 Christmas period,
Yes.
right? And
I just
I'm
want to.
saying,
Can I just make
yep,
this one point that
yep,
so I
please
try
do.
and point out to young people in our industry, when somebody comes in, you get this great job. Like let's say that Brisbane factory that got the job to manufacture a Dragon Pump. They see an
Yep,
amazing product was selling all over the world, and they get this amazing opportunity. What they are unable to check, but had to check, is who was supplying before and were they paid? Because
sure.
what Michael did is gave them an opportunity of a lifetime, but he actually couldn't pay his previous supplier. And in our industry, that, and I've seen it all over all industries, is that sometimes that I just got BHP Billiton, and it's not BHP Billiton, but I just got this amazing contract, or I got Trump, it's another one, right? So I'm building something for Trump, and then all of a sudden you don't get paid or whatever, and then the best chance in your life becomes the worst experience of your life, isn't it?
And in
and
session one, you may remember I said to you about the Thomas Dixon shoe sales guy that went over to Los
yes,
Angeles, and the buyer went, I want 10 of every design of every size that you've got, and he come back and went, hey, look at the order I've got, and
yeah,
accounting and management went, yeah, but we can't supply it. So
we'd go
the
broke.
investment on the business, the expenditure, and then come back with the order,
Yes,
but a zero situation. So
yeah.
now we're faced with Christmas, and thank God there was across the country there's a shutdown. It gave me the breathing space. My attitude was, we've got to put this on the table with the guys in Melbourne bloody quick, because if we don't, we can get wound up really fast, really bloody
Right.
fast, right? So I said to Michael, okay, well we're going to have a shutdown of 2 weeks like everybody else. I'm going to use that time to drive into Melbourne, and I'm going to sit down with our friends in the engineering shop and say, we're very, very sorry. This was totally out of my personal control. We will get that back to you, because we're selling a product at just short of $1,000. So $45,000 is 45 to 50 to 60 products. It ain't that hard to do it.
Yes.
If you've got the supply line right. Okay.
Yes.
So I sit down with Michael in our local coffee shop that we used to walk around to from the office to have our 10 o'clock. We're going to sit down and plan out the day, what's happened in the past days, what's going to happen in the future, but what we're going to do today, right?
Yeah.
This was this thing that I was adamant
I think
about,
it's brilliant.
Right?
Yeah.
It's so damn important to take that
1
hour before you commence business, preferably, to sit down and talk with your business partner or wife about where in the bloody hell you're going, because there's stuff going on in your head that's happened through the night. There's stuff going on in your head when you've opened up your emails on your phone in the morning, and it's like,
tell me.
okay. So I jump in my car and I a 2-day drive into Sydney, into Melbourne, and I'm staying with my partner down there because I'm in this long distance relationship right now. And of course, what happens? We get over the first week. I open up my email on the second week, and there's an email from Michael. Paul, I'm really, really sorry. I'm under duress and I'm stressed like crazy. But I've taken some advice from my father and from other friends that are very close to me, and I've decided to shut down the business. And as a result, I've negotiated with the landlord to take our deposit money on the original factory. And
The bond,
as the bond, and I've moved everything out to another location on the Sunshine Coast. You won't find it. It is under my control. I'm prepared to offer you a job as a sales rep. But you will never have access to the place. I will build the product and send it to wherever you nominate, and I will pay you a commission only on the business model. Now, I own the trademark for Dragon Pump. I own all the intellectual property around Dragon Pump. And my IP lawyer happens to be in Melbourne. So all of a sudden, I'm looking at this young man holding a baseball bat that really has taken an opportunity of my wonderful, generous nature and easygoing nature. And I think, yep, you just picked the wrong guy to do this to, young fella. So what do? I ring my IP lawyer and go, we're going to get legal because, hey, I've got all this experience on legal. And
completely, you know what's coming.
Yeah. And we have a meeting and she says, yep, this is $650 an hour for her services. Remember, we've talked about this before. And so I sit down with her and we have a bit of a session of a couple of hours. And she said, well, Paul, of course I've got to know all the background, all the history. And I went, yeah, well, I can do that. I can do that. No problems. So now I find that the factory is shut down actually for 3 weeks. So I stay in Melbourne for an extra week. I make an appointment with the factory and I go over hat in hand and go, this is what's going down right now back in Brisbane. Has Michael been in contact with you? No, he hasn't. And that's when I find out he's liable to them for $45,000 worth of debt plus some. There was another $25,000 in invoices that Michael hadn't paid. So 45 grand plus 45 grand inventory, 25 grand
70 grand
invoice. And so there we are. So they said, well, Paul, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'm going to get back up there and slap him around, but he's isolated the inventory. I've got to find out where it is. I've got to jump through a few hoops and then try and recover the business model. And they said, look, we're rich, we're okay. We will extend to you the need to do what you need to do, but we only ask that you remain in constant contact with us. And I said, from my point of view, total transparency. Total transparency. So we shake hands, we're on good terms. I'm happy to go back over to Queensland and say, Michael, I've taken the pressure off your shoulders. We can redo this and work out of a storage unit or whatever. But the truth of the matter is he was too proud and too set in his ways by people who were influencing him, including the guy that was doing the Facebook, which it turned out was a guy that ran a coffee shop on the Sunshine Coast. And Michael considered that this guy was one of his best mates because his new girlfriend also worked in that coffee shop. And
so young.
So while I was in New Zealand and while I was in the United States, Michael wasn't going to the office at all. He was working out of the coffee shop because that's where his mate and his girlfriend was. And yeah, so there was a lesson to be learned from that. The end result of that relationship with Michael was I got up again and started to work towards building the product commercially. We went after him legally to the point where he managed to find a few dollars to pay a local solicitor. And the solicitor said, you can take the heat out of this by removing the Super Dragon Pump label, call it another product. The product is already exposed to the market, so there is no intellectual property other than the trademark and the domain names, etc. And just keep on doing what you need to do, which is what the advice that Michael took, in spite of everything that I was legally throwing at him. And that was costing me thousands of dollars.
See?
But what it did is that it came to a conclusion where Michael legally went bankrupt. But prior to going bankrupt, he sold the IP and the website to his father for a minute amount of money.
Yeah, $1.
Which his bankruptcy accountant accepted. And
yes. No, that's normal. If he went into administration, they'll accept it. Yeah.
Yeah, he got it set sideways. His new girlfriend become pregnant out of marriage. He got married, and and now he works as a design engineer for the engineering company in Melbourne because his uncle or cousin or whatever just retired, and so he's got the job, which was just laughable.
Oh my God!
Right, and of course, as he went bankrupt, so did the engineering shop in Melbourne didn't. They took a hit, but you don't know whether, Michael was working for nothing for a period of time to repay the debt or whatever was settled between the two of them.
Yeah.
So now I'm back in a situation of I've got to do my own thing again, and I'm now looking for a fresh engineering shop to produce the product. Life goes on. Dedicated to what you've got, you keep on pushing the button. I'm almost feeling like I've got a big loser label on my forehead right now.
Right.
Is it inability? Is it ignorance? What is it? What is it that's, putting me in these 7 to 10 year
cyclical
J curves? So
now where are you? 2020.
Now
are you in the middle of COVID?
Mid to late 19. COVID's just around the corner. Around the corner. Yet to hit us. So I find that Michael, with this second engineering company, had split the model range. He'd used a Queensland-based company to produce the base model, the everyday El Cheapo, and he'd used another company in country New South Wales to build the more sophisticated model. You build one, you can easily build the other. So what had happened when I was in the States is the MD of the country New South Wales guy had known of me and my original blue product that I showed you, because he was a reseller of that product back in the 80s, and then had lost track of my direction, and so it was a father to son engineering shop. So now the son has taken over the whole business, and he's got it up and running, doing nice stuff, got some state-of-the-art machinery. And while I was in the States, he happened to be in Brisbane, had called on Michael to visit our warehouse factory, was impressed with what he saw, and said to Michael, yeah, I'm happy to build them for you, but still smelt a rat, because Michael's father had got into the meeting, and this guy, when he asked certain questions, knew that neither one of them knew what in the bloody hell they were talking about, based on the fact that he had seen my original product. And these two guys hadn't. They didn't know my original product existed. So he rings me out of the blue and says, you're Paul Finster. Yes, I am. You're the guy that designed Dragon Pump. Yes, I am. Look, I'm down here, and Michael asked me to build these things, and we've got to the point of a quote, but we haven't built it as such. What's going on? So I immediately go, I'm driving.
Yeah, I'm driving. I'll see you
There's
tomorrow.
There's no airport, so it's a whole day of driving to get there through
Lovely.
the back of New South Wales to get there. He's in wheat country,
Okay.
and it's country that I
Right.
know. So I go in
Yeah.
there and we have a sit down, and he's going, Paul, this is fantastic, et cetera, et cetera. We can give you added service. Okay, what's added service? We can not only build it, but we could assemble it. Not only assemble it, but we can package it, and we can dispatch it from here, because our town is a hub for road transport
Right.
for the whole east coast of Australia.
Yeah.
So Paul's thinking focus on sales and marketing, not focus on assembly, which is what I was doing, not focus on packaging, which was what I was doing.
Yes.
This could be great. So I spend a few days with this guy, and I'm checking him out, and I'm looking at his facility, and I meet his wife, and we have dinner, and it's all wonderful, wonderful. I've got him to sign off on a non-disclosure. I'm pretty happy with where everything is, right? And he said, well, we can not only do this, but we can buy all the raw material in and, and do all that work for you, because
Finance it.
Hey, we'll finance the whole thing to be part of the overall scheme of things. And I've talked to him about New Zealand. I've talked to him about America, and I've just touched the smallest edge of America. I know what I'm now running with, and by this time I'd found a second American distributor on the New York side that was well and truly into hazmat, had put Dragon Pump into the US Coast Guard and many other significant companies, including the New York Fire Department. So now Dragon Pump's back in the market.
Yep.
And he's falsely advertising he's the US exclusive distributor, which was a lot of bullshit, but anyway. And I want him to go out and do engineering, but he was afraid of flying. He would drive, but he wouldn't fly.
Right.
Some brain thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I reach a conclusion with this Middle and New South Wales manufacturer. Yep, we're going to do it. So we set up quality control. So I don't do one run. I do several runs in and out of this town to make sure that everything was 100%. He wanted me back in there to set up testing rigs and maintain quality control. And now I'm explaining to him the value of putting that little gadget on the scales.
Fantastic.
And, and all of that. So we're up and away. We've got through 2019, and all of a sudden COVID hit. My godfather. We watched, as Australians, what was happening in New York, where they were wheeling people out on ambulance stretchers,
refrigerated trucks,
out of brown houses in New York, in Manhattan. And I went, my godfather, I knew that. And we watched what was happening in Europe, and the mass graves and the other things.
The Italians.
And I remember saying to my partner, because they were about to close the Queensland, New South Wales borders, all the borders were being closed in Australia. And I said, I've got to dash back to Brisbane, because I could be trapped. And if I'm trapped, I've got to find accommodation or a lifestyle in a area where I don't have a current residence, and all my personal things are back in Queensland. So I remember leaving at just short of dawn, giving her a hug in the driveway and saying, I don't know when I'll see you again, or whether you'll see me ever again, but I'm in the car driving. And we talked by car phone as I got back and made it just 1.5 days ahead of the border being closed. So now I'm trying to go, so what are we going to do with this product out of the middle of New South Wales into all states around Australia? And of course, what was happening is these sales outlets, well, like the American gangsters back in the Depression days, they all went to the mattress. It was like, now I'm going to work from home. Now I'm going to talk to my customers. But some of those customers were shut, because in Victoria in particular, The government
Yeah,
started
especially
throwing
there, they
money
got
at industry,
paid to stay
yeah,
home. Yeah.
paid to stay home and paid not to function, quite frankly.
Yes, yes.
Everybody was
Horrific.
shoving their wages in the bank and just having a great time, you know,
Yeah.
sneaking around
Outrageous.
the middle of the night where the police wouldn't see them just to catch up with friends and relatives, whatever. But the game was
Yeah.
played in this country real bad, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that have got
Yeah.
to answer for that, or still
Yeah.
answer for that, nevertheless.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I
we
agree.
saw it, and there it was. So it's one of those things where we have to say it was a period in our life of all the things that one goes through in selling from age 15 and a half to age 65, thereabouts, of lifelong experiences to know and understand how to deal in the marketplace under sometimes somewhat extreme conditions. The
Yep.
Tamworth guy, because he saw the sales literally drop overnight, took
Yep.
drastic action on his own merit. He put the aluminium back through anodizing baths, recolored it, relabeled it, and put it back into the market under his own label. So today, I am not selling Dragon pumps. I'm not selling Dragon pumps. I'm redesigning a brand new model.
Yeah.
It will be something that no one ever expected. I will be taking marketing direction and experience to another level. If I
Yeah.
choose to go ahead, it's still a matter of
Yeah.
personal
Yeah.
choice
Yeah. Yeah.
at this stage.
Yeah.
I'll see where my life takes me. But behind the scenes, a lot of drawing, a lot of figuring out, a lot of product. In the meantime, I've designed another product, which is a pump with no moving parts. It will empty a 1,000-litre IBC container. For those of you who know what that is, it's a big plastic, huge cube with inside a caged metal
Yep. Yep.
framework.
Yep. That 250 gallon, 250
Yeah,
gallon for the Americans. Yeah.
1,000 litres. Yep. It will
Yeah.
probably empty that in somewhere about 3 minutes with no moving parts, which means you can move chemicals, different oils, different materials. Nothing goes through the pump. It's totally compressed air powered. It's literally the
Wow.
size of my fist, and I've yet to do the trademarks and the other things around it, but I'll do it with a
Yeah.
lot more clever intention now. I've built the prototypes; they work beautifully.
Wonderful.
The engineer that built it, who signed off on a lot of stuff, just shook his head and went, "Where in the bloody hell did this come from?" And I went, "God given, it's there,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
hopefully
God
I will
given.
get to see it, go into the marketplace." But it will revolutionize the way we all empty bulk containers of food dyes or food material or oils or lubricants or
Wow.
whatever it may be, chemicals. See, one of the things that you use to empty out these predominantly is what's called a double diaphragm pump. And the problem with a double diaphragm pump is that you can have cross contamination. So if you move a particular food material through it, a liquid food material, it could be soup, you've got then strip down that pump completely, wash it all, and then reassemble it, and then put it onto the next type of product that you want to move,
Right.
so you
Right.
don't get
Right.
cross contamination. In my product, there is no cross contamination, so
Ah, good on
it's
you.
bloody exciting. It's bloody exciting. But
Yeah.
we'll see, and
Yeah.
a fraction of the price that anyone in the industry could produce a
Great.
pump for. So yeah,
Great.
yeah.
I want to.
So
I want now. I want to go back. Because that's the future. But I actually want to go back and talk through some of the stuff that happened and come to these conclusions. Because you said the point when you said, like, I've got, have I got an L on my head? What am I
Yep.
doing wrong? What causes this cyclical pattern? Am I, are you the common element? So
Yeah.
is it Paul
Yeah.
Finster that changes, or is it the other people that change? Or were they always going to do that? Like I look at the one, the apple from the tree, which I think Eve ate. Is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and so in this, by the archetype of what it says, every human has the ability to take any piece of information and use it for good or use it for evil, use it for bad.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and the only thing that makes you, and we've all used things for bad, right? So it's not like anybody's holier than thou, but not necessarily intentionally or malevolently, and so this is what my summation, because I've only heard one side of every story, but from your side, but it seems to me that being generous, being kind, being friendly. AC Lockyer was talking about exactly the same thing last night. Is that there are other people that just at some point in their life they think it's an opportunity, or it's genuinely an opportunity, where they think, I can flip this now. I can now use what was good for bad. I don't have to say evil, but you know what I mean. But that's kind of like where the original saying came from.
Yeah.
And I was talking to AC. You listen to it, and it just is so weird that so many people will do that, but it's in everybody to do it, and I think that's probably the conclusion. It's in everybody to do it. Then how do you stop that from happening, or whatever? And I think that profit has something to do with it. As soon as profit's missing, everybody goes to be survival mode or something. There's definitely that common point is when cash ran out because the guy spent too much money on Facebook. When cash, or sales dropped because COVID came along, and the whole world was going to crap. Isn't it? Is it circumstance?
Well, if you go back to the sessions that you and I have had, and because you and I are very much in a parallel field, even though we're not selling the same product, we are a parallel field because in part we are inventors,
And we create efficiency. That's the biggest thing that
we do. And we create
everything I've
efficiency.
touched that creates efficiency has looked after me. Every job I've taken, which has got nothing to do with efficiency, I haven't thrived at.
Because what we try to do is we try to create a better world for for people that we value, right? And I go back to saying what I said to you in this interview, a previous interview. My wife said, Paul, you make it look so simple, but in fact, it's very complicated. I go back to this little piece of nylon,
right.
It's so simple, but it's actually very, very complicated. I saw you on Facebook talking about the diameter of the fittings that you run your water through, which inhibits the amount of volume and pressure you can deliver, right? And so
the velocity of the water, and therefore how far it squirts, and then matching the squirt to the function. And our bristles they break the surface tension of the glass, so hydrophobic glass turns hydrophilic for the purpose of cleaning. Yeah,
we're talking the same language, Perry. We're talking the same language, right? There is no difference between what you and I do. The difference is how you go to market, the way you market.
Yes.
But deep inside, there is a generosity in both of us, and that generosity is, I've created this. I want to share it with the world to make the world a better place. Scientists do it all the time. The medical people in the world do it all the time.
Correct.
And so we look at things and we go, okay, here it is. Greed, or the need to keep your company at the cutting edge of a business model sometimes is the driving factors. So in other words, if I'm going to be a Granger's in the world, I've got to have everything that I can find inside the lolly shop, bar none. I am gorging myself on everything that's inside this lolly shop. Sorry,
right.
They don't call it lollies.
No, don't worry about the camera.
Yeah.
Sweets.
So
candy.
sweets.
Candy.
Yeah, candy. I'm going to walk in the candy shop and I'm going to eat every candy that I can eat until my gut is so far out in front of me, it will never, ever go back to being thin, right? And so these monopolies try to do that. It comes down to the fact that you can see that billionaires turn around and go, I'm not going to give my kids any inheritance whatsoever. I'm going to give it back to charity, or I'm going to give it back to the wider community, because my kids have to know how to build their lives under their own steam. We see this from time to time, you know, and so there are people in the community that love their family, but I believe that in some cases they are middle class people who just want to have that wonderful relationship with their partners and with their kids, and watch their grandkids grow. But there's another element that's out there that turns around and says, I'm going to abuse the market and I don't care a damn about, you know, what's going to happen. Like, I had this guy on Long Island that I sold to. He used to let me stay in his home. He invited me in to JFK. He would have a limo there for me every time and drive me out in the limo with a bar in the back. He'd be on the phone to me. Paul, would pick you up from the airport. Everything okay? Looking forward to seeing you. And I worked with that guy, and I opened up distributors for him. And within 18 months, he'd reverse engineered the product and went on his own. What do you do? How do people really, really, take you on? He sent me a book, and it was a book about selling techniques. And he wrote on the inside of the book, to the greatest salesman I've ever met. It's been a pleasure knowing you, Paul. How do you turn around and slap someone on the face at that level? I had never done one thing that would have put him and I at cross purposes. It was all about, I'm over here to help you and support you and help you grow your business, because in growing your business, I grow my business.
Yeah.
You know, you wonder about where this is going.
You know, you would have met some crazy rich people in your life, and I've met some crazy rich people, and I've tried to work for them as well. And I concluded at the end of the last guy that people who achieve this massive level of success get caught in this void between fear and greed. They have the greed for more and the fear of loss of what they have. And there's a character shift. There's a character shift, which is horrific and possibly a searing of the soul, if I could be so adventurous, sort of.
Hey,
it's kind of like.
I was in Chicago when the Kuwaiti War commenced. And I was in an unbelievable restaurant in Chicago with 6 to 8 business guys. The restaurant, the waiters were, it was silver service. The waiters were dressed completely in white with white gloves on. You couldn't see skin on these guys other than their face. The guy that headed up the table was an executive, a CEO of Chicago Pullman, one of the biggest railway companies in the United States. The guys that were with me were compressed air powered guys. They went on to reverse engineer my product in my first entry in the United States, and I had talked about that in previous sessions with you. The interesting part is that a waiter walked up to this CEO and said, "Sir, there's a telephone call for you. Could you take it, please?" And this is, the phone handpiece was on like 20 feet of cord. So, they just walked the whole phone over to the table, and the guy picked that up and went, I forget his name, Henry Johnson here, and he listened and he listened and he listened. Is that right? Is that right? Is that right? Is that right? That's great news. That's great news. And he's got this big grin all over his face. And he put the phone down and he said, "Well, guys, lunch is on me." Well, it was going to be on him anyway, but he had to say it. "Lunch is on me. I just got the whole supply line for barbed wire to go into Kuwait. I have dined with multi-millionaires in the best of circumstances. I have been in the back areas of Zimbabwe where I have watched African people with holes in their clothes working in a factory under the most horrendous situations. I've been in Israel where I've had an Uzi submachine gun stuck in my ribs asking for someone to undo my sample case because they believe that the gun that I had inside it was a gun, which it wasn't, and they
Right.
wanted to see inside, my
Right.
case. I've been in a lot of dangerous places. I've been in a lot of wonderful places in my life. I've watched personalities. I've been lucky where I started selling at age 15 and a half to housewives who opened the door with rollers in their hair and an old dressing gown, a cigarette hanging out of their mouth going, yeah, kid, what do you want? And all I could say is, lady, I'm here to help you clean your Venetian blinds, and we'll do it for, $25 or whatever. And I remember in my first divorce that the marriage guidance counselor said to my wife when the two of us were sitting there and he was trying to debate whether we were actually going to divorce or stick it out. And he looked at my wife and he said, I'm going to give you a word of advice. And she sat there and looked at him, pale-faced, in her best clothes with her best makeup. And she said, yes. And he said, you're not going to like it. Paul has a way of dealing with people. His occupation means that he is reading your body language, and I can see from him that he is really holding himself back to say, liar, liar, your pants are on fire, because she just spilled him the biggest set of lies to defend her position that she could ever deliver, right? So you and I have gone through this wonderful journey in life where we can sit down and front people and take them on face value, because that's who you and I are. Honest blokes trying to do what we do, right? Help people out through our generosity and our knowledge, and know full well in doing so that there is a knife behind the back, that they're sitting there with their arm behind it going, am I going to pull this out or not? We see it in your opposition trying to keep up with you, and you keeping ahead of them. And as I've said to you, create a product and create its opposition at the same time, and have your opposition sitting there waiting for the guy to spend all of his money, hard-earned dollars, to copy you, only for you to turn around and go, well, you've done that, now can you oppose this one? His funds are gone. His funds are gone. He's got to stick with what in the bloody hell he's launched, because otherwise he's going to lose face. Look at me, look at me. I've done what the other guy's done, and I've done it better.
I've got the same as Richard. You
haven't. Yeah, I've watched that company in Holland, and I watch what they do and what they don't do in your industry.
Oh, not just there, everywhere. Everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon.
It's delightful. It's just sad. It's just sad when people believe them, that it's the same as our product or whatever. But it's taught me a lot, Paul. There was a time where I didn't have any money, and I would go, into the Westfields and, the shopping mall, and there'd be a little Chinese sort of stand in the middle of the walkway with Ray-Bans on it, and I'd buy Ray-Bans for $20, and then I'd walk around with Ray-Ban, all that. And then one day, 15 years later, I'm on my own and going through the airport, and I see Ray-Bans in a sunglass hut or something like that, and I think I'll buy Ray-Bans are $300. I think I'll buy a pair, right? I've never had a pair. And then, and then I go, holy shit-a-moly, right? This is so different. For 15 years I've been buying $20 Ray-Bans, and then put on a real pair of Ray-Bans or Oakleys or Maui's or any of these, and you go, there's nothing like it. And we get the same experience when people come, oh my God, I bought this because it was the same as yours, and I bought that because it was the same as yours, and I bought this because they brought it out to copy yours, and then they get one of ours and they go, oh my God, it's nothing like our products,
Exactly.
Yeah. And I've been, but
Exactly.
I've been there, so I don't hold any grudges against them because I go, it's life, you know. If you know, we could spend $20,000 a month in advertising, we spend $500 a month in advertising. You know,
There you
if we
go.
wanted to spend 20,000, maybe we could get that much more. But how many window cleaners are out there, and how much Facebook is going to show it to somebody else who doesn't want to know? And isn't it? But the benefit for
It
us,
is.
Paula, with our model is that direct to end user. So we have the margin, so we've got the margin to be able to develop new products. It's the cost of developing the new product,
Sure.
which is applied to the product that people are buying now, right? So they spend
Yes.
$350 on a brush. $50 of that may go towards the next product, or $100 of that may go to the next product. Don't worry about in buying a product, you're supporting the R&D for the next thing that you're going to want to buy as well.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And that's my future direction now. That's my future direction.
No, I'm gonna enjoy. But you and I are going to do something that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
That's
Now
gonna be
I've
fun.
got to move along because I've actually got to be at another location in an hour's time.
Okay.
A very important meeting. Hopefully.
Good
I
luck,
don't know. We'll see.
my friend.
I
Good
may
luck.
or may not talk about it on our next conversation,
No.
or we'll see where that goes. But I can see that we've spent an hour and a half, and last time was 2.5 hours. I couldn't believe that I was having so much fun over 2.5 hours on the last session. Thank you so much, Perry, for making that last session so bloody enjoyable. And
Yes.
and Ben for sitting there putting up with an old
I
man
know, right?
raving about, but nevertheless. But let me say this, because it's now getting to another interesting part and segment of my life. At this part, I can now, go, oh, so this is what happened in COVID. I've brought it up to the COVID period, which isn't that long ago right now. And to bring it to a cessation today at that point of time will make it so much easier to start up next week.
And
if
we'll know
that
where to
invitation
start.
is open.
Yeah. No, the
we'll
invitation's
know
open. Next
exactly where to
Thursday is good.
start. Great.
Is
Thank
it
you
next
very
week?
much.
What's the date next? As long as it's not 7 days
Oh,
from
no,
now.
you're going-
Maybe not next.
you're go-
No, I'm going diving.
You're going to be on your scuba trip.
Yeah, so it'll be the week after that, Paul.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll set that up accordingly.
Me and Ollie are going for a 5-day scuba dive session.
Oh, how good is that?
It's going to be amazing.
Living the dreams.
Yeah,
Gotta be
living the
amazing.
dream. Eh? Yeah. I just good on you. Good on you.
Yeah. No, I love this boy,
okay.
and Harrison should be there, but he's not. He's got other things going on.
Ah, damn.
Yeah.
So
But we're good.
important too. Yeah. Go on.
Just get the time with the kids, like if you can. I'm just so lucky that I'm an older father, because I could never have done this when I was a young father, because I'm just trying to bloody pay the way, right? But I'm an older father. And then in order to be an older father, you have to have a divorce, because women, basically, if a woman bears a child over the age of 35, it's called a geriatric pregnancy. So you stay with a woman for life, and your childbearing years are limited to her childbearing years, by the nature of her age. And then so the person that we envy and are in awe of, who can keep their one partner for life, never get the experience which I have, which is this second family experience, which requires a new, younger life.
Yeah.
In order for it to happen.
Different way. And a way.
Isn't that weird?
Way of thinking.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Yes,
it's weird.
Yeah. So there's a lot of this, which I want to, explore, but that's another day.
Yeah. Oh well, we're privately we're going to have some great conversations when we do get together, because again, I've gone through what you're going through with Ollie, so.
Right. Fantastic.
Yeah, the baby in the family is out there, but he's not there anywhere near me, unfortunately.
That's sad.
Yeah. So.
Ben's pushed the button. Okay, we'll talk again.
We'll see
you in 2 weeks.
Yep. 2 weeks time, and
okay.
if we get some phone time or some some media time backwards and forwards with other things,
Oh God,
that'd
yes.
be great.
Oh God, yes. Yeah. And Daryl, I know Daryl's in there saying, Daryl, can you make sure we're friends on? Send me a note on Facebook. I don't know if we're friends or not, but I meant to follow you up yesterday, but I got busy. Okay.
Okay. Good on you.
Peace out.
See you, friend.
See you in 2
Bye-bye,
weeks.
Ben. Yeah.
Cheers.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching or listening to another Service Six Sigma podcast. If you enjoyed the content, please like and share with other mobile service contractors. We live stream daily, Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. All previous podcasts are available for viewing at service6sigma.com. And for listening on your favorite podcast channel, just search Service Six Sigma. See you next time, and you have an epic day.